Early this year, when Sonic Frontiers was announced back in the end of May, I was very excited. They told us that we're going to have an open world Sonic game. It's going to be doing a lot of different things compared to other Sonic games. It's going to be heavily story based, and the gameplay is going to be something very different. And today is the day. Sonic Frontiers came out last week, and I finished playing the game, and I wanted to give my thoughts on it. I am very conflicted on the game, but I have some ideas, and I'm very excited for the future of Sonic, but there are some big issues with this game that I want to talk about, but also some really good things, and I'm hoping y'all enjoy the video. Welcome back to another video. My name is Pro, and welcome to my review of Sonic Frontiers. This game just came out a week ago, and I know a lot of y'all still haven't played it and want to play it, so I'm going to give a spoiler warning now for the story. Y'all can skip to the gameplay portion and the rest of the portion when I talk about the rest of the game. This is your spoiler warning now, just in case y'all still want to enjoy the story and not have it like spoiled for you like this. And I think you should play the story. It's very interesting. And let's head into the story portion of the video. I actually really like the story mode a lot. The story mode takes place after Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles basically get trapped on the island. Eggman's also there, but he's trapped in the cyberspace, so basically it's going to be talked about later on. But Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles all get separated, and Sonic is separated from the rest of the group, and Tails, Knuckles, and Amy are all trapped in cyberspace, and Sonic needs to go and save them. The more and more he saves them on every single island, the more and more he ends up getting corrupted by cyberspace, and at the end of the game, he is fully corrupted, basically killed, and then gets brought back to life through the power of friendship, and then Sonic is able to work together with everybody else, including Eggman, to stop all the Titans, ending the game. I'm trying not to go super crazy in the story mode, because the story mode, for me, the most important part about the story mode is not even about like the overall plot. It's about the characterization. This game has some really good character beats that I love, especially through all the interactions between Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, even Eggman and Sage. Sage is the new character that you've probably seen in all the trailers. There's a lot of character beats that are really like hit you in the heart, and that I really love to see, especially as a Sonic fan. But I feel like if you're not really that big of a Sonic fan or are super tapped in on a lot of the lore, some of these story beats are not going to hit you. Like, for example, on the second island, when Sonic and Knuckles are looking at the ruins, you see a picture of Sonic 3, and they're basically reminiscing about Knuckles' his tribe. And if you're not like tapped in on the lore, that story beat's not really gonna hit for you. Another example is back on the first map, on your first island, when you're going up to the very end, where you're about to go fight the boss. You also go to a waterfall, and Sonic references Mystic Ruins. And I believe other parts throughout the game, Sonic will talk about other things from the past that you're not gonna really know. You're not gonna be really tapped in on that type of stuff if you haven't played those games. But for me, who's played those games, it's really nice to see those references. But if you haven't played the games, I can see how you're like, it doesn't really matter to you. Like, it's not really as enjoyable as it is for someone like me. So those are the things I did like about the story and some of the little beats. And I feel like if you're a Sonic fan, you'll really enjoy it. But if you're not really a Sonic fan, you're not really gonna care that much about it. But another thing I wanted to talk about the story mode is the voice acting. So the voice acting, I believe most of the cast does come back, but Sonic still has Roger Craig Smith, but Roger is definitely voicing Sonic in a very different way. Roger's giving Sonic more of a deeper voice to like undergo with the tone. He's not really voicing Sonic like he is in like Generations or Colors. This is a different form of Roger's Sonic, and I actually don't mind it. I didn't like it at first on the first island, but I feel like that was maybe the first island's fault with the dialogue. I feel like the dialogue was fine, but I feel like the direction that they were giving Roger to voice, it didn't sound as good. But I'm telling you, by the second island, Roger's voice acting really goes crazy, and I really like it. Like, it's really good. The dialogue's really good throughout the rest of the game, and especially when the game gets a little bit more darker, especially on the third island with Chaos Island with Tails, and in the fourth island, you really get to feel Roger's emotion with how he's talking to the characters or interacting. I feel like it wasn't as good on the first island with Amy, but with Knuckles and Tails, and even later on in the game with Sage and Eggman, I feel like the direction and the dialogue was a lot better and a lot more enjoyable. So I feel like the voice acting was really, really good in this game, and I didn't mind it. I did talk about the story a little bit earlier, but you definitely feel the writing, Ian Flynn's writing, more on the dialogue more than the actual plot. The plot wasn't like crazy. The plot wasn't like anything like, oh my god, like this is like crazy. The crazy thing for me was a lot of the backstory on like the Cuckoos and like the ruins and how the Chaos Emerald's like origin kind of. That was more important to me, but for people that aren't really tapped in on the lore of Sonic, it's not really going to care about that stuff. That stuff's not going to be really that important. For newer people, I can definitely understand that. I definitely think that's a problem, but for me personally, I'm not going to let that hold back the game for me story-wise, but I can see why other people would not like it as much. That's basically what I wanted to talk about for the story. The main bulk of this video for me is definitely going to be talking about the gameplay, because the gameplay I'm very, very split on. We're going to talk about the gameplay. So the way I want to explain the gameplay is I think of it as this. There's one Sonic gameplay, but they put that one Sonic gameplay in multiple different gameplay styles. So think of the gameplay as one Sonic. It's one Sonic gameplay, but they put him into different scenarios. So the two biggest gameplay parts are cyberspace and the open world aesthetic. The open world is where you're going through all 5 islands. You're able to run around, explore things, get collectibles, da-da-da-da-da. But the cyberspace is more like Generations Unleashed type of gameplay, and in short bursts, and where you do those cyberspace to get these keys, and these keys allow you to unlock the Chaos Emeralds, and so on and so on. I'm going to explain more and more later on. But these are the two different gameplay styles, and most of the game is ran through it. But there are some problems. So let me start off with the good first. The open world in this game is great. I think that is hands down the best thing about this game, and what I believe every single Sonic game after needs to do. Every single Sonic game after this, I believe that's 3D. If it stays this open world aesthetic, just the open world, it's going to be really good. I did like a lot of the puzzles that were in the open world. They were really, really simple. Definitely not as I guess challenging or demanding as Breath of the Wild, but like this game is definitely Breath of the Wild inspired, but definitely not like exactly copying it. Like a lot of the things that you have to do to like unlock things in the world are kind of like in Breath of the Wild, like shrines, but like instead of this game, they do have like dungeon type things, but it's not really like shrines. Like most of the time they have these little mini games or little like MacGuffins on the floor that you have to do real quick, and it unlocks more of the map. That's where I think it's definitely really close to Breath of the Wild, and being able to explore everywhere on the island. Most of the places on the island, like most of the places on the island allow you to go whenever you want or travel anywhere you want, but some places do limit you and you having to be farther on the island's completion to do. For example, every single island has multiple MacGuffins. We have the keys, we have the memory tokens, we have the fish things, but the most important thing for me is the memory tokens and the keys and the gears. We also have gears. The gears are used to get into cyberspace, and to get into cyberspace, the reason you go to cyberspace is to get the keys, and the keys are used to get the Chaos Emeralds, and the Chaos Emeralds are used to go farther in the story. You get me? So basically think of it as gears, keys, Chaos Emerald. That's how you defeat or finish an island, and there's multiple ways to get memory tokens and keys. So the way you can get memory tokens is by going across the whole island, just going across areas, and then also like attacking enemies or doing like little side quests. That's how you're able to get memory tokens. Or you can get memory tokens by fishing. Gears you can get by fighting enemies such as bosses. So on the map they have these red enemies on the map that are basically the stronger bosses, and those bosses will give you, they're more like mini bosses, will give you gears to unlock cyberspace. And then the Chaos Emeralds, you get that by getting the keys from the cyberspace, or by using keys. You can also get keys from fishing. Fishing, I'm gonna talk about more. Fishing gives you a lot of leeway on doing stuff. Like later on in the game, I really did not like doing cyberspace, and for me, I didn't have to do cyberspace because I could just go fishing, and when you go fishing, you're able to trade a lot of the fish you get for items in the game. Think of it this way, like I said, you use the gears to get the keys to get the Chaos Emeralds. That's how every island works besides one. That's how all the islands work, and these allow you to like go throughout the game. For you to finish an island or to move on to the next island, you need to get all the Chaos Emeralds. So think of it that way. And I believe that design is fine. I definitely thought at first before the game came out that this would be a little bit too much, like you're getting one thing to get another thing to get another thing, which I thought was annoying. But actually playing the game, I did like that they give you multiple ways to get stuff, so like it wasn't that big of a deal to me. The one thing I didn't like though is the cyberspace. So cyberspace is the second gameplay style. And cyberspace, I thought before the game came out that cyberspace would be one of my favorite things because I thought it would just play like Generations and Unleash. But you're going to experience more and more that it goes back to what I said about this being one Sonic created for two gameplay. Sonic feels really weird in cyberspace or in areas where you're having to go in the Unleash style. Like Sonic feels really weird when you're going in the Unleash style because his physics are weird, which I think is going to get fixed. They've already said they're going to be updating the game, but there are multiple times where like the momentum gets stopped. For example, whenever you light speed dash, in other games you'll just keep going after you light speed dash. It's the point of keeping your momentum and getting all the rings and going faster. But in this game, for some reason, when you light speed dash, when you get to the end of the light speed dash, he just pauses for a second. Or whenever you're on a spring, sometimes when you get on the spring and try to get off of it, sometimes you lose your entire momentum. And for me that's played other 3D Sonic games, it can throw you off, and there's a lot of deaths I had because I wasn't expecting my momentum to just go away like that. And I feel like in this game, the 3D sections clear the 2D sections. Like one of the reasons I don't like Chaos Island is because the 2D sections in this game feel really weird to me. I feel like the momentum is really, really off and really weird. Like sometimes you can have a lot of speed, and then sometimes Sonic can just like have a lot of like his momentum just stopped, and it can feel really, really sluggish, especially when you're double jumping over like spikes or just going around. The 2D sections in this game, in my opinion, are definitely the lower part of the game, which has felt like that for a while in 3D Sonic games, ever since like Sonic Lost World, Sonic Forces, especially Sonic Forces. The 2D sections of Sonic Forces really, really sucks. And I feel like in this game, it's not as bad as Sonic Forces, but it's not that good either. Like, it's not that good to where, like, I actually prefer, like, it's not 50-50. Like, the way I wanted this game to be, if they had 2D sections, was to be 50-50 with the fun. And y'all know, check out my Sonic 3 video, y'all know I love 2D Sonic. But 2D Sonic is carried for me, and one of the reasons I love 2D Sonic so much is because of the momentum. And it feels like in these 3D games, Sonic Team has been really struggling with the momentum in the 2D sections. But it wasn't just that, though. Like I said, there were times, like in Cyberspace, where it was 3D, that like a lot of the momentum would get just gone. And I felt like that Sonic wasn't really built for like these more closer stages, more of these like closed in stages where you're getting from the goal ring compared to this open world. Like, in the open world, I'm telling y'all, Sonic feels great. I love going across the island, just speeding around, fighting people. It feels great. Like, the game feels open, and that definitely feels like the part of the game that they put the most work into. And that's what I want the rest of these Sonic games to be like. I feel like the rest of these Sonic games should be that open world into the 3D. These should be that open world feeling. But there were some things that just definitely got to be fixed, and there are a lot of things in this game that, like, there's a lot of devs. I had a lot of devs that were just through physics and collision. Like, the game's new. The game just came out a week ago, so I'm not really holding it against the game, and plus I still beat the game, and I still managed to get through it, but there were definitely a lot of parts that were frustrating that I was dying to because of the physics. But a lot of these things can get fixed in a patch, and there were already mods out for the PC version that fix these issues. So they already addressed that they're going to be fixing this type of stuff, so I'm not holding it against the game a lot. I hope you get what I'm saying when I'm talking about the gameplay and how the physics really can like mess some of that stuff up. Like, I do think the open world part is the hands down the best part of the game, and it feels great. Like, this Sonic was really built for open world, but there are definitely some stuff that just can get tweaked, especially with the momentum and stuff like that. Besides the gameplay, there's other also stuff you can do. So throughout the open world, there's a lot of climbing, there's a lot of parkour, which gives some of its things from like Breath of the Wild a little bit with the climbing and stuff like that. Sonic's able to climb on a lot of stuff, but he's not at the same time. So in Breath of the Wild, you're able to literally climb on everything. And Sonic Frontiers, I thought the same, but there are just sometimes some like areas where you just can't climb it. Like, you can't climb it at all, or like you'll be stuck. Like, a lot of times you'll be on a mountain and you think you can climb it, and sometimes you can run up the mountain fine, but then sometimes the game will just act like you can't climb at all or run on the mountain at all, and you'll just fall to your death. And that definitely felt a little weird and really frustrating. And I think that's one of the things that for this game so far is definitely just the physics. I feel like the physics are really holding back the game and can be really, really frustrating to me personally. Like, that's probably the most annoying thing in the game. And going back to physics, so this game is mostly 3D, right? But like I said, when I talk about cyberspace, there are 2D sections. But in the open world, there are sections where it goes from 3D to 2D back to 3D. And sometimes they work fine, but sometimes they work really, really weird. Like sometimes it won't work, or sometimes you'll be put like in the middle part of the 3D, 2D section. The game doesn't know which section to put you in, and it glitches out. It's very, very frustrating when you die because of it. And I can see like this is like a bug that they can easily fix, and this is the first game of this type of gameplay style, because other Sonic games have that 3D to 2D to 3D section, but a lot of those times in those games it's 3D to 2D rest of the level, and then like it instantly goes back to 3D, like it's scripted. While in this game it's less scripted. Like the 2D sections are scripted on the map, but going back to 3D, it's not as scripted as it is in the Unleashed games, because at the end of the day it is an open world game, and the player should be able to go back to 3D whenever they want. And I feel like them having the 2D sections in general just made it harder for them. I feel like at this point they should have just took it out and left the whole game 3D. And I feel like for the rest of these games afterwards, they're really going to do that, because the general overall consensus between I've seen everyone talk about this game is definitely that the 2D sections are the worst part of the game. The best parts are the open world stuff. So I feel like they're going to take it out eventually, and or just like next game they're going to like not do that. But that was definitely like one of the low lights of the game for me in terms of the gameplay. I feel like I've been very, very negative. And I'm going to go back to more positive stuff, and then I'm going to finish on some other stuff that I think needs to be fixed. The physics was definitely one of the bigger things that really, really like messed with me a lot, that I didn't really like, that I feel like it could get fixed. But one of the things I did like was the combat. So in this game, they moved Sonic back on his homing attack to the square button, but it's not just the square button. Like the square button is basically his attack button. So in this game now, I don't believe in most Sonic games. Most Sonic games you have to jump and press another button like X or square to do the homing attack. In this game, if you're even standing, if you press square and the reticle pops up, you can automatically do a homing attack. You don't have to jump anymore. You can still jump and do a homing attack, but they give you multiple ways to do that. Sonic has these little kicks as well that do damage. He's able to dodge. He's able to have these special abilities like Sonic like Boom, Sonic Cross Slash, whatever. The combat in this game, especially late game when you have all the abilities, it's really, really fun. There are a lot of times where I'm like, dang, I wish there was more boss fights like the ninja, because the ninja is really, really fun to fight, and like the other versions of him are really, really fun. But there are parts where the combat is not as fun. There are some boss fights or mini bosses that I really don't like fighting against at all, that like you definitely struggle with the physics. For example, in the final island, there's like this yellow mini boss fight that you have to fight, and you have to go on grind rolls to like beat him, and sometimes the physics can be really weird, especially on the grind rolls when you're jumping up and trying to switch directions. It can be really, really weird, and momentum can go away. It was really, really frustrating, and I feel like there are moments in the game that I definitely struggle with that, with the combat. But overall, I believe the combat's really, really fun. But yeah, there are some other parts too, like besides that boss fight, like sometimes some abilities require you to jump or press the dash button, then press another button, and sometimes I'll do it, and sometimes it just won't work. And I don't know it's because I'm not locked onto the enemy or whatever, but sometimes even when I am locked on, it still won't work. So I'm not really sure about that. Maybe that's just a skill issue on my part, but I definitely ran into that a lot of times where I was jumping and I was dashing and pressing X to do my projectile move, and it still would not come out. So I feel like that was definitely a problem with the game sometimes. But overall, the combat I'm really, really positive about. In the next game, I feel like they can really fix this stuff, or even just a patch. Like I said, a lot of these problems I have with the gameplay, I feel like can get patched, like they can get fixed. That's why I'm not super, super heavy on it, and I think it's overall enjoyable. So there are other things about the gameplay that I don't like or didn't like. So in this game, like I said, there's like multiple ways to like complete an island. You basically get the gears to get the keys to get the Chaos Emerald. But there's also these memory tokens, like I said, you have to collect to also move the game along. And sometimes when you do those memory tokens and you talk to your friends, you also have to do these little side quests or these little mini games. And a lot of those mini games are really annoying because they changed the gameplay. So in a lot of those mini games, you can't dash, and the way Sonic moves is a little different. You also don't have your special abilities, and sometimes the game moves really weird. Like the physics just change. Like I said, it feels like there's one Sonic, but it feels like this one Sonic wasn't built for all these different gameplays. And some of those mini games can be very, very annoying, and I feel like they were like a waste of time. They were definitely like some of the lowlights of the game for me, especially that when you die on the mission, it feels like it takes so long to get back to it, because when you die, you have to basically go back. You have to go to the retry menu. You basically have to let the thing load back up again. It has to say ready. It has to do all this starting up, playing the music, and then you can start all the way from the beginning. And sometimes it can be really, really frustrating. And it feels like there's like multiple random gameplay styles that don't need to be there. So, for example, there's a slot machine on, this is like, this will maybe a little spoiled, but there's a slot machine you have to do in Chaos Island, and it is hands down the most annoying thing in the game to do. And the problem is that it's mandatory. You need to beat it to go further throughout the story. You can't like move on without beating it, and it's definitely one of the most frustrating things in this game, in my opinion. It definitely like made me mad a lot, and I died a lot just because it's pinball. Pinball takes skill, but at the end of the day, it is unlucky. I just don't like that it was like forced, that you're forced to do it. Another thing I didn't like is that sometimes you have to do this little hacking thing with the whole like computers, and it's basically Galaga, and those things were a little annoying as well. It just felt like a big pace breaker from the actual game. Like the part of the game that I really, really like is the open world stuff, and it feels like sometimes in this game they just take it away and just want you to do some random BS that you don't really want to do. Like the pinball was a reference to older Sonic games like Sonic Spinball and other Sonic games that have a lot of pinball in it, like Sonic Adventure, but I don't like that it's mandatory in this game. Like in Sonic Unleashed, the pinball is a little mandatory because you need to get more money. But like if you don't like do good at pinball, you still go into the underwater section or the sewer level part of the level to get more rings that you couldn't get from the pinball. In this game, you need to get to the score that they want you to do, and you cannot go past. You can't go farther in the game until you beat this. There's nothing else you can unlock, like an ability to make it easier. Either you're good or you're not. And I didn't like that. I feel like Sonic games definitely have this problem, especially in 3D, where they just take away from the main gameplay style. And this was definitely that problem. So that's one of the things I definitely had a problem with. As you can see, I had a problem with the physics, cyberspace. Like I feel like I'm mad at cyberspace because of the physics. Like that's why it just feels not as fun to play as the open world. And I didn't like the random gameplay styles that they would throw at you that would randomly take away from what the main gameplay style is. Like how it would take you from the open world and then just put you in a random Galaga, or like the 2D sections are not as good as the 3D sections because the physics are not built for it, or they just need to patch it, or the 2D to 3D sections felt really wonky. For this game, my main problem with the gameplay, as y'all can see, is just the physics. But all the stuff I'm talking about can get fixed. Besides the pinball, that can't, unless they take it out, that can't get fixed. That was annoying. But everything else can get fixed. So that's why I'm not really taking it so much on Sonic Frontiers for that, because it is the first week and they could patch that stuff out. And there's, like I said, there's already mods to fix it, and Sega has said that they're gonna fix it. So I can't really be on it too much, and it wasn't that bad to where it was unplayable. It was definitely just annoying, but it definitely wasn't like, oh my god, this is the worst thing ever, it's unplayable type stuff. It's definitely not on the scale of like Sonic 06 or any of the Sonic, like the Sonic 06 like side quests or mini games and stuff like that. It's definitely not on that tier or anything like that, but it's just like, I want this game to be better, and those things were definitely holding it back from me being enjoyed, and sometimes would be really, really annoying. Like sometimes those like moments, sometimes those moments would just make me want to stop playing the game sometimes. The last thing I want to talk about for the gameplay is that I want to talk about the boss fights. So the boss fights are definitely one of the best things about the game for me, and I did talk about a lot how I wanted more gameplay, especially like how I wanted like more of the normal combat, but the boss fights are really, really epic. They felt very, very different from the normal gameplay, and it wasn't bad or annoying. I definitely felt like I wish they had more phases, because some of the abilities you lock later on in the game, especially the Sonic's projectile move, can definitely shred some of these bosses' life bars, but they are really, really fun. especially the first one. I believe the first boss fight is probably my favorite because I didn't see a lot of spoilers for this game, and I was very, very surprised that like, oh shit, we already turning supersonic in like the first boss fight before I learned about the whole like structure of the islands and stuff like that. It was really, really sick, and the theme music, I'm gonna talk about the soundtrack more, but these boss fights all have very, very, very good music.
It's time to face your fears. When your time has come and gone, I'll be the one to carry on.
But I'm not gonna talk about a lot about the spoilers of any of the boss fights, but the boss fights are really, really cool and definitely the highlights of the game. But we're gonna talk about the soundtrack. So the soundtrack, I really, really love these boss fight themes, especially the first one, which is I think the first theme. It's called Undefeatable, and it's really, really good. You're probably hearing it right now. But some of these other themes throughout the game, all the other boss fights, all have really, really good themes. But I'm not very that big on the overall game music. So the game is definitely similar into how I feel about Breath of the Wild music, where it's definitely more atmospheric and stuff like that. It's not like other Sonic games where you like every track has like Zone 1 has a theme, Zone 2 has a theme, stuff like that. It's definitely more atmospheric, and for all the islands except one of them, they were like blowing my mind with the music. Like my favorite overworld theme from any of the islands is the Ares Island, which is the second one. That theme is really, really nice. It sounds really, really good, and to be honest, that was probably my favorite island to explore across was the second island. But I definitely love it, and I definitely love the Ares Island's boss fight theme a lot too. Like that is really, really good. It goes crazy. It's definitely some of my favorite things I've heard. Like it went crazy. But the soundtrack, I like it, but I'm not as big on it. I probably has to grow on me for the other like island themes, overworld island themes to go. But overall, I liked it a good amount, but I definitely wish there was more like tunes that I can just like, oh my god, that bangs. But the ones that bang, they bang. Like, all the boss fight themes bang really, really hard, and they're great. You should definitely listen to it. But I think I talked about everything I wanted to talk about. I want to end off on this conclusion. Sonic Frontiers is a good game. It's a good Sonic game. It's real. Not even. It's. Let me say this in a way I can say it's the most non-biased Sonic friend I can. It is a very good Sonic game. A very good Sonic game that is probably one of the best 3D Sonic games we've had in a long time. I really want to replay it, especially on the hard mode to see if anything's changed, especially with the boss fights and stuff like that. But there are definitely some glaring problems that I need fixed first before I hop back into it, because some things in the game are very, very frustrating. The pinball section and the multiple like weird gameplay switches, for example, like the side quests and how they changed the gameplay so much. The way that the momentum doesn't work on the cyberspace with the physics that still need to be worked in the overworld as well. But there are a lot of good things that happen in this game that are still good, that the future of Sonic is looking really bright. Most of the open world is really, really great and really, really fun to play. Like some of the most interesting or fun I've had in a 3D Sonic game in a very long time. And I'm very, very excited for where it's gonna go or what more games that can be created from this new gameplay style. But they do need to stop relying on the 2D. I felt like the 2D, the 3D to 2D to 3D sections were not that good, and I feel like a lot of the 2D sections were not as fun as the 3D sections in this game, but mostly because of the physics. So maybe if they fix the physics, that'll change, but I felt like I had so much more fun exploring the island and being able to run around, use all these abilities, use the combat, because like in the 2D sections, you can't even use a lot of the combat techniques. All you're doing is homing attacking. And it felt like the 2D sections are just a lot more limited compared to the 3D sections. But I like this game. I do like it a lot, but there are definitely some big things that are holding the game back for me. But I'm not disappointed in this game. I'm actually very, very shocked by a lot of things I did like. And the things I didn't like, it could easily get fixed. And I'm very, very excited for the next Sonic game. And Sonic Team shouldn't be sad about this game. They should be very proud of this game, because this game definitely felt like it had a lot of love and a lot of like time put into it. And a lot of the things I had problems with can easily get fixed or just removed. So if I had to give it a rating, I'm not really a big rating guy, but I have to give it a rating. I'll give it a 6 or a 7 out of 10. Maybe even a 5 out of 10, because This is my first playthrough, and I was already annoyed with the cyberspace stuff or like the physics and stuff like that. But I feel like those things can get fixed. So I feel like I should give it a 6 or a 7 out of 10 if I did have to get it for a rating. But let me know what y'all think about Sonic Frontiers down in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear y'all thoughts about it. Have y'all played it? Have you gotten it? And if you're excited about future of Sonic or worried about the future of Sonic, let me know down below. And I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. This is me, Pro. This is the end of this video. And I'm going to see you guys next time. Peace.
I'll be back before you can do a fortune card reading. See ya!
Thank you guys for watching the video. Leave a like, subscribe, and if you want to see more content like this, hit that bell, posting consistently. I upload another video like this, a Sonic 3 and Knuckles video explaining why it's one of my favorite games of all time and why it's one of the greatest Sonic games of all time. If you would like to see that review, check it out in the comment section down below and also in the description and in the end card. And thank you guys for watching the video. I'm going to see you guys next time. Peace.